Hello friends, welcome back to my channel 365 IT Pros. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create multilingual copilots for data stored in SharePoint and leveraging generative AI responses. Multilingual copilots are copilots that can communicate with your customers in different languages while keeping all content in a single copilot. In this video, we are going to create multilingual bot for HR department. With generative AI, your HR copilot can intelligently interpret user input, whether they are in English, Spanish, French, or any other supported language. It can then respond to user using generative AI response, provides relative information, and answers employees' inquiries. So let's dive in. For this particular demo, I have a SharePoint site having two variations, English and French. Each of them have few HR policies localized in English and French. We will use these policy documents in these sites to generate AI-based response for user queries. So here I am in my Copilot Studio environment, and I have already created a multilingual copilot called HR Multilingual. When this copilot was created, it was created with a primary language. Remember, you cannot change the primary language for copilot once it is created. I'll quickly show you how you can set primary language. So when you go to Copilot, New Copilot, here is an option to choose language for your copilot. For this particular demo, I have set English as the primary language for my copilot, and I have also added French as a secondary language. Now I am going to show you how this copilot works with user queries, and I will also leave tracking on. Refresh user session. Now I'm going to ask question about leaves. I'll say tell me more about leaves policy. And the copilot is going to generate response based on leave benefit guide stored in an English site. On the right side of a screen, you can see the flow of topic, which I'll cover later in this session. So now Copilot is generating a AI-based response, and here is response from Copilot. The company provides several leave benefits to employees. It has provided this summary of a leave benefit guide along with how many days of paid time off. Now it says, did that answer your question? I'm going to say no, because I want to ask a specific question about paid time off. So I'm going to ask one more question. Yes, we would like to try again. Now my copilot will offer me to ask one more question. I'm going to ask how many days of advance paid time off. Now again, it's going back to generative AI node to generate a response based on a leave policy guide stored in English site. The company provides up to 24 hours of advanced paid time off, which is exactly what is mentioned here in the English site. 24 hours per year. Now let me change language of this copilot. It is available at the top of Test Copilot. On the right side, you see option to change language. I'm going to change to my secondary language, which is French. Now it's going to refresh the session, and now I'm going to see all the text in localized French site. For this particular demo, I have appended FR at the end of each localized text. So this FR means this text is localized in French. Now I'm going to ask another question to this copilot. Before that, I want to show you that I'm also capturing the language of copilot. So current language is French. Now I'm again going to ask the same question, how many days of paid time off, but this time I'm going to use it in French. I'm going to ask in French. So now if you see on the right side, it is again going to Generative AI node to generate a response based on a leave benefits policy stored in a French variation of HR site. So here is the French version of leave benefits. Now for this particular demo, I have changed the advanced paid time off to 32 hours in a French version of policy. So here you see the generative AI based response mentioning 32 hours of advanced paid time off. So this is how we can generate a multilingual copilot to answer user query based on data in SharePoint. Let me show you how you can add more languages to Copilot. You can add as many languages as the secondary languages to Copilot as long as they are in the list of supported languages. To add a new secondary language, you can go to Settings, Languages, and click on Add Languages. Here are the list of supported secondary languages. Once you add a new language, on a language update localization page, you will see an option to download resource file to store localized string. The resource files are available in two formats, JSON and regex. You can download this resource file and then open the downloaded file and replace primary language strings with an appropriate translated text. I'll quickly show you one of the JSON files that I've used for French translation. Here is the sample localization.json file. It has all strings in a primary language used by Copilot. You can replace primary language strings with localized version of string to generate a localized file for a secondary language. For this particular demo, I have appended FR at the end of English text to highlight French strings. Once you replace all strings with a localized version, you can save this file and upload back into Copilot Studio environment. Once you are done making changes to localization file and have translated all primary strings, you can return back to Update Localization page, browse and upload translated file. You have an option to change Copilot language here in menu at the top of Test Copilot. We'll change it to English. Now let me show you how to capture Copilot's language in chat. So here you see I'm showing Copilot language. We'll go to one of the topic. Copilot language is stored in a variable called user.language. It is a system variable of type choice. You can set the value of this variable to change the language of Copilot, either through the menu provided here, or you can automatically detect the desired language based on Copilot user's web browser setting and respond to user in the same language. Now this provides more personalized and engaging experience for users. I will show you that towards the end of this video. Now if Copilot user has the browser language configured, which is not configured in the Copilot through the steps I shown just now, the Copilot will always fall back to a primary language. That is the language which was used while creating the Copilot. And remember, you cannot change this language after the Copilot has created. Now this was all about adding the secondary language. Now let's look at how to generate multilingual response from a content, that's policies, stored in SharePoint Online based on user query. Now here in my Copilot topics, I have created a custom topic called Gen AI to generate AI-based response from HR policies or documents stored in SharePoint site. This Gen AI topic gets triggered when Copilot do not have any matching topic. In this topic, I am checking user language. And based on user language, I have added two nodes to create generative answer based on user language. Each of these nodes have a different SharePoint site variation as a data source to create AI-based response. Here I am using French HR site as a data source, and if user language is English, I am using English SharePoint site as a data source. If there is no matching condition, then I am calling the same create generative answer node which I have configured for English site. You can further optimize this by having a single creative generate answer node where instead of giving the data source as a SharePoint site, you can change it to a formula and you can use PowerFX function to dynamically select data source based on user language. If system.user.language is equals to French, I'm going to return French SharePoint site, or else I'm going to return ENUS. All right, I guess, yeah, missing the codes. So now instead of having two generative AI nodes, I will use one node to dynamically select SharePoint site based on user language. Now, if you are not familiar with creating generative answers on SharePoint data or using this creative generate AI node, please refer my separate video. Link is in description. You will require to configure manual authentication with Azure or Microsoft Entra ID in order to use creative generative answers. Now this is all about generating AI-based response using multilingual approach. Now let me show you how to configure this Copilot to automatically detect user's browser language and set it as a Copilot language to respond to user in its local language. Here I am in my Edge browser, and what I have done is I have added the Copilot which I created previously into a custom canvas. Upon refreshing browser, it will ask me to log in. This is nothing but a simple HTML page where I have embedded the Copilot. I'll quickly log into Copilot. Upon login, you can see it is detecting my browser language as a Copilot language, English. My current browser setting is English United States. Now let me ask a quick question to Copilot. The same question, tell me more about leave policy. Now it's going to generate a response using create generative AI node for English SharePoint site. Since it has detected my browser language as English, it has set the value of variable user.language as English. You can see the response is generated from a PDF file which is in English SharePoint site. Now what I'm going to do is I'll change my browser language to French. I'm going to refresh this session in order to change the browser language. Now you see it has already detected my browser language as French and set the value of user language to French. It is showing French translation which I have already provided in a translated file. I'll quickly log into this particular bot. Here I am showing you that it has detected French as the user.language. Now I'm going to ask same question, how many days of advance paid time off in French? It should return me a result from a leave policy stored in a French site. I believe it is 32 hours. So here you see it has generated a response from a French site. Now let's see what happens if I ask question in English. How does Copilot behave? So no, I'm not happy with the response. Yes, I'll say leave policy, or I'll say leave benefits. Now I'm asking in English. Copilot is still browsing the data in a French version of HR site. Now here you see it is generating a response from a French document, but it has detected my language as English and it has translated the content, French content, into English. This is the French document where I have mentioned 32, 20 and 36 hours. You can see the references of a French document. So create generative node automatically detects the language based on user query, and it then translates that particular content into English as an AI response. Now let's check what happens if I set to a language which is not a language supported by this Copilot. So I'm going to push now Spanish at top. I'll go to my Copilot. Now, since Spanish is not a supported language, for this particular Copilot, it has automatically fall back to primary language of this bot, which is English. So this is how you can detect the browser language and give a personalized experience to user to response using generative AI response in its own language. Let me quickly show you how I'm detecting the browser language and setting the user language. Here is the custom canvas that I'm using to host my Copilot. Token endpoint URL is the URL of your Copilot. You can generate token input URL from Copilot Studio by going through Settings, Channel, Mobile App page. Here I am detecting browser language and storing it into a local variable called local. If a browser language is not available, I am passing English as a default language. You can find link to this particular file in description. Now once I have detected the language of browser, I am passing the local in a render web chat function to set the local for my copilot. Also, I can pass the same local if I am looking to post any activity as a default start activity upon loading of Copilot. I'm using start conversation as a starting activity and I'm passing the local to start conversation topic. If you are not familiar with creating canvas for a Copilot Studio, you can find the link in description to learn more about creating custom canvas for Copilot Studio. Thank you very much. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, please share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.